Princess Valera Sanketh had never seen a human before. She had heard stories about them. Her teachers called them young and foolish. Her father called them dangerous. But she had never looked at one with her own eyes until the day her marriage was announced. She stood in the throne room of the Crystal Palace. The walls were made of glass that showed the stars outside. The floor was smooth and cold under her bare feet. She kept her hands behind her back and tried to look calm. But inside, her heart was beating fast. Her father, Emperor Thelos IX, sat on his throne. He was old, even by Aldrani standards. His skin was silver and gray, and it did not change color anymore like it did when he was young. The Aldrani showed their feelings through their skin. Happy people turned gold. Angry people turned red. Scared people turned pale blue. But the Emperor had learned to control his colors long ago. Around them stood the members of the High Council. They wore long robes and looked down at Valera with eyes that showed nothing. "My daughter," the Emperor said. His voice was tired. "The Council has made a decision. You will marry a human." The words hit Valera like a slap. She felt her skin turn blue before she could stop it. The council members saw this, and some of them smiled. They were pleased to see her scared. "Father," she said, keeping her voice steady, "I do not understand." "The humans are spreading through our space," said Advisor Nithro. She was the oldest member of the council, with skin like dried paper and eyes like black stones. "They breed fast. They build fast. They want what we have. If we do not stop them, there will be war. And a marriage will stop them?" Valera asked. "A marriage will buy us time," her father said. "The humans value such things. They believe in love and partnership. If we give them a princess, they will believe we want peace. Do we want peace?" No one answered her question. That was answer enough. "The human will arrive tomorrow," Nithro said. "His name is Daniel Cole. He is a commander in their fleet. You will meet him. You will be kind to him. You will marry him when the autumn equinox comes." Valera wanted to scream. She wanted to run. She wanted to break something. But she was a princess of the Aldrani Empire. She had been trained since birth to control herself. So she simply nodded and said, "Yes, advisor." That night, she stood on her balcony and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, a human ship was flying toward her. A man she had never met was coming to claim her as his wife. And she had no choice in the matter. She had never felt so alone. The next morning, Valera watched the human shuttle land on the palace platform. It was a small ship, ugly by Aldrani standards. The metal was gray and plain. There were no decorations, no beauty. Just function. The door opened, and soldiers came out first. They were tall and strong, with weapons on their belts. They looked around with suspicious eyes, checking for danger. Then they stepped aside and made way for someone else. Daniel Cole walked down the ramp. He was shorter than Valera had expected. The report said humans were small, but she had thought they were exaggerating. He was a full head shorter than her guards. His skin was a single color, a light brown that did not change or shift. His hair was dark and cut very short. His eyes were brown and tired. He wore a blue uniform with gold buttons. It was clean and pressed, but it looked old, like something that had been worn many times before. On his chest were small metal pins. Awards, she guessed. Signs of honor among his people. He did not look like a conqueror. He did not look like a monster. He looked like a man who had traveled a very long way and wanted nothing more than to sleep. Valera watched from her balcony, high above the landing platform. She thought she was hidden. She thought he could not see her. But then Daniel Cole looked up. His eyes moved across the palace walls, across the windows and balconies, and they found her. Found her hiding in the shadows. He did not smile. He did not wave. He simply nodded. One small movement of his head. A greeting from one trapped person to another, without thinking. Valera nodded back. Then the guards let him inside, and he was gone. Her handmaiden, a young woman named Sari, came to help her dress for the formal meeting. As she brushed Valera's long silver hair, she asked, "Did you see him, princess?" "The human?" "I saw him. What did he look like?" Valera thought about the question. What had Daniel Cole looked like? She had expected something fierce, something frightening. Instead, she had seen tired eyes and a worn uniform and a man who nodded at strangers. "He looked small," she said finally, "and alone." Sari made a sound of disgust. "They say humans are like animals, that they fight and kill each other constantly, that they destroy everything they touch." "They say many things," Valera replied. "Not all of them are true." She thought about the way Daniel had looked at her. There had been no hunger in his eyes, no greed, no hate, just a kind of quiet understanding, as if he knew exactly what she was feeling because he was feeling it too. Maybe the humans were monsters. Maybe everything her teachers had said about them was true. But Daniel Cole did not look like a monster. He looked like a man who had been sent to do something he did not want to do, just like her. The formal meeting was set for the afternoon. Valera spent the morning reading everything she could find about humans. Their history, their culture, their language. Most of the information was old and probably wrong. The Aldroni had not bothered to study humans closely. They were too young, too unimportant. But Valera read it all anyway. And when she was done, she did something that surprised even herself. She learned to speak English. It took her only a few hours. The Aldroni were very good at languages. Their brains were built for it. English was simple compared to some of the alien tongues she had learned as a child. By the time the afternoon came, she could speak it as well as any human. She did not know why she did this. Maybe she wanted to surprise him. Maybe she wanted to show him that she was not just a piece of property to be traded. Maybe she just wanted to understand him. Whatever the reason, she was ready when the time came to meet Daniel Cole face to face. The garden where they would meet was called the Garden of Eternal Stars. It was the most beautiful place in the palace. Flowers that glowed with their own light grew in patterns across the ground. Trees with silver leaves reached toward the sky. The air smelled sweet and clean. Valera stood in the center of the garden and waited. She wore a silver dress that moved like water when she walked. Her hair was pinned up with diamonds. She looked like a princess. She felt like a prisoner. Then she heard footsteps on the stone path. Daniel Cole came around the corner and stopped when he saw her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. They just looked at each other. Two strangers thrown together by powers beyond their control. Then Daniel bowed. It was a human bow, awkward and stiff, but clearly meant with respect. "Princess Valera," he said in broken Aldroni. "I am honored to meet you." Valera smiled. "Just a little." "Commander Cole," she replied in perfect English. "The honor is mine." His eyes went wide. His mouth fell open a little. And then, for the first time since she had seen him, Daniel Cole smiled. It changed his whole face. He looked younger, warmer, almost handsome in a strange human way. "You speak English," he said. "I speak many languages," she told him. "Yours was not the hardest to learn." He laughed. It was a good sound. Real and honest. "No," he agreed. "But it might be the most confusing. Even we do not understand all the rules." And just like that, the ice between them began to melt. Just a little. Just enough. They had a long way to go. But for the first time since she heard about this marriage, Valera felt something other than fear. She felt hope. They walked through the Garden of Eternal Stars together. The glowing flowers lit their path with soft blue and purple light. Above them, the sky was dark and full of stars. Real stars, not the fake ones that decorated the palace ceilings. Daniel kept looking around at everything. His eyes moved from the flowers to the trees to the small streams that ran between the paths. He did not try to hide his wonder. He let it show on his face like a child, seeing something amazing for the first time. "This place is beautiful," he said. "We do not have anything like this on Earth." "Earth is your homeworld?" LeHFY asked. She knew the answer, but she wanted to hear him talk about it. "Yes, it is small and blue and green. Mostly water." He smiled a little. "We thought we were alone in the universe for a very long time. Then we found the jump gates and everything changed." "How long ago did your people discover space travel?" "About 200 years. Before that, we had never left our own solar system." LeHFY tried not to show her surprise. 200 years was nothing. The Aldroni had been traveling between stars for over 50,000 years. They had built empires and watched them fall and built new ones on top of the ruins. And the humans had only just started. Yet here they were, spreading through the galaxy like wildfire, building colonies, making alliances, becoming a power that even the ancient Aldroni had to respect. "You move fast," she said. Daniel laughed. "That is what everyone tells us. They say we are impatient, that we do not take time to think before we act. Is it true?" He thought about the question. Really thought about it, not just giving a quick answer to be polite. LeHFY liked that about him. He took things seriously. "Maybe," he said finally. "We do not live very long. 100 years if we are lucky. So we try to do as much as we can while we have time." 100 years. LeHFY had lived for 300 years already. She would live for 300 more if nothing killed her. The idea of only having 100 years to do everything, to see everything, to love everything, was hard for her to imagine. "That must be difficult," she said. "It is just how things are. You cannot miss what you never had." They came to a bench beside a pool of water. Small fish swam in the pool. They glowed like the flowers, making the water sparkle with living light. Daniel sat down on the bench and looked at the fish with fascination. LeHFY sat beside him. Not too close, but not far away either. "Can I ask you something?" Daniel said. Double quotes. "Yes. Why did you learn English?" "You did not have to. I would have learned your language." LeHFY thought about how to answer. The truth was complicated. She had learned English because she wanted some kind of control over this situation. She wanted to show that she was not just a prize to be won. She wanted to be seen as a person, not a symbol. But she did not know how to say all that. So she said something simpler. "I wanted to understand you," she told him. "Not just your words. Your thoughts. Your feelings. You cannot really understand someone if you only hear them through a translator." Daniel nodded slowly. "That makes sense. Language is more than just words. It is how people think, how they see the world." "Yes, exactly." He looked at her then. Really looked at her, not just glancing and looking away like most people did when they talked to royalty. His brown eyes studied her face as if trying to read something written there. "You are not what I expected," he said. "What did you expect?" "Someone cold, distant, someone who looked down on me because I'm human." LeHFY felt her skin change color. A little pink, which meant embarrassment. She hoped Daniel did not know what it meant. "I do not look down on you," she said. "I do not know you well enough to look down on you." Daniel laughed again. "Fair enough. Then I hope I can prove myself worthy of being looked at as an equal. Why did you volunteer for this?" The question came out before LeHFY could stop it. She had wanted to ask since she heard that he had chosen to come here. Everyone else in the human fleet had tried to avoid this assignment, but Daniel had asked for it. His smile faded a little. He looked down at the glowing fish in the pool. "I volunteered because no one else would," he said. "Someone had to do it. If they had sent someone who did not want to be here, someone who hated your people, it would have ended badly. War would have come anyway. So you came to prevent war?" "I came to try." He looked up at her again. "I do not want our peoples to fight. I have seen war. I know what it does. The death, the destruction, the hate that lasts for generations. If I can do something to stop that, even something as strange as this, then I will do it." Valera felt something shift inside her. She had thought Daniel was a victim, like her, someone forced into a situation he did not want. But he had chosen this. He had walked into a cage willingly because he thought it might save lives. That was either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both. "My people do not think much of humans," she admitted. "They believe you are young and reckless, that you will burn out fast, like a star that shines too bright. And what do you believe?" She thought about it. "I believe that any people who can cross the stars deserve respect. The method does not matter. The achievement does." Daniel smiled. It was a warm smile, the kind that reached his eyes. My grandmother used to say something like that. She said that what matters is not where you start, but where you end up, and how you treat people along the way. She sounds wise. She was. She never left Earth, never even left her small town in a place called Kansas. But she understood people better than anyone I ever met. "She passed away?" "Yes, a few years ago. She was 93, old for a human." His voice was soft, full of love and loss. "She would have liked you, I think. She always said I needed to find someone who would challenge me, who would make me think." Valera did not know what to say to that, so she said nothing. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the fish swim in their endless circles. After a while, Daniel spoke again. "I know this is not what either of us wanted. I know you did not choose this any more than I did. But maybe we can make something good out of it. Not love, not right away, but respect, friendship, a real partnership. You think that is possible? I think anything is possible if two people are willing to try." Valera looked at this human, this small, strange creature from a young, foolish species, and she saw something in him that surprised her. She saw strength, not the strength of muscles or weapons, the strength of hope, the strength of someone who looked at impossible situations and refused to give up. "Then we will try," she said. Daniel held out his hand. It was a human gesture, she knew, a way of making agreements. She took his hand in hers. His skin was warm and dry. Her skin was cool and smooth. They were so different in so many ways, but when their hands touched, something passed between them. Understanding, agreement, the beginning of something that neither of them could name. Yet, they stayed in the garden until the stars began to fade, and morning light crept over the horizon. They talked about their homes, their families, their hopes and fears. They laughed at jokes that did not translate properly. They argued about which planet had better food. They discovered that they both loved music, though they liked very different kinds. By the time the sun rose, Valera knew more about Daniel Cole than she knew about most of the people she had grown up with. And she realized, with some surprise, that she liked him, not loved him. Not yet, maybe not ever, but she liked him. And that was more than she had expected. As they walked back to the palace, Daniel stopped and turned to her. "Thank you," he said, "for giving me a chance, for seeing me as a person and not just a political problem." "Thank you," she replied, "for being someone worth seeing." He smiled that warm smile again, and Valera felt her skin turn a little gold around the edges. Just a little. She hoped he did not notice, but from the way his smile widened, she thought maybe he did. The days that followed were busy. Daniel was given rooms in the palace. He had to meet with the council. He had to learn Aldrani customs and laws. And he had to prepare for the trials. Valera had almost forgotten about them. Every man who wanted to marry an Aldrani princess had to prove himself worthy through a series of tests. The tests were old, designed thousands of years ago when the Aldrani were warriors. They tested memory, strength, wisdom, and honor. For an Aldrani, they were difficult but possible. For a human, they were meant to be impossible. Valera knew what the council was doing. They had agreed to the marriage, but they wanted Daniel to fail. They wanted to humiliate him, prove that humans were inferior, and cancel the wedding without looking like they had broken their word. She had to warn him. She had to find a way to help him, because somewhere in the past few days, Daniel Cole had stopped being a stranger. He had become something else. He had become a friend. The first trial was called the Trial of Memory. Valera learned about it 3 days before it was supposed to happen. She went to Daniel's rooms that night to warn him. He was sitting at a desk when she arrived. Books were piled around him. Aldrani books with strange symbols and long words. He looked tired. Dark circles had formed under his eyes. "You have been reading our histories," she said, trying to. He rubbed his eyes. "Your written language is harder than the spoken one. And there is so much of it. 50,000 years of history. How am I supposed to learn all that?" Valera sat down across from him. "You cannot. That is the point." Daniel looked at her. "What do you mean?" "The trials. They are designed for you to fail." She told him everything. The trial of memory required candidates to memorize 10,000 words in 1 hour and repeat them perfectly. The Aldrani had perfect memory. They could remember everything they saw or heard. Humans could not. Daniel listened without speaking. When she was done, he was quiet for a long time. "So they want me to fail," he said finally. "Yes, then they can cancel the marriage and blame you. They can say that humans are not worthy of joining with Aldrani blood. And what do you want?" The question caught her by surprise. "What? You came here to warn me. You could have stayed silent. Let me fail. Go back to your life. Why are you helping me?" Valera thought about the question. A week ago, she would have been happy to see Daniel fail. A week ago, she had wanted this marriage to disappear. But things had changed. "Because it is not fair," she said. "You did not come here to conquer or destroy. You came to make peace. You deserve a real chance." Daniel smiled. It was a small smile, tired but genuine. "Thank you, Valera. That means more than you know." "There is nothing you can do about the memory trial," she continued. "No human can memorize 10,000 words perfectly in 1 hour. It is impossible." "Maybe," Daniel said. He leaned back in his chair and looked at the ceiling. "Or maybe I just need to find another way." "What other way?" "I do not know yet. But I have 3 days. Let me think about it." Valera left his rooms feeling worried. She liked Daniel. She respected him. But she could not see how he could pass a test that was designed to be impossible. For the next 3 days, Daniel did something strange. He stopped trying to prepare for the memory trial. Instead, he spent all his time in the Imperial Library. He read poetry. He read religious texts. He read old stories and plays and songs. When Valera asked him what he was doing, he just smiled and said, "Learning the patterns." She did not understand that the day of the trial came. The testing hall was full of council members and nobles. They had all come to watch the human fail. Advisor Nithral sat in the center seat, her black eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Daniel stood in the middle of the room. He wore his human uniform, clean and pressed. His face was calm. If he was scared, he did not show it. The trial of memory will now begin, LeHFY announced. The candidate will be given a text of 10,000 words. He will have 1 hour to memorize it. Then he must repeat it without error. A scroll was brought to Daniel. He unrolled it and looked at the words. It was a passage from an ancient religious text, written in formal Aldrani. Very difficult, even for native speakers. Daniel read the text once. Then he rolled up the scroll and closed his eyes. For 59 minutes, he stood perfectly still. His eyes did not open. His body did not move. The council members began to whisper among themselves. Some laughed quietly. They were certain he would fail. Then, with 1 minute remaining, Daniel opened his eyes. He began to speak. The words flowed from his mouth like water. Not perfect. Not exact. But close. Very close. He made mistakes. 17 of them in 10,000 words. But his pronunciation was clear. His rhythm was right. He understood what he was saying. When he finished, the hall was silent. LeHFY stood slowly. Her face showed no emotion. The candidate has made 17 errors. The trial of memory requires perfection. The candidate has failed. A murmur ran through the crowd. Some people nodded. Others looked troubled. Valera's skin turned dark with anger. Wait. It was Daniel's voice. He stepped forward, facing LeHFY directly. I have a question. LeHFY narrowed her eyes. You have failed. There is nothing to discuss. Has any human ever taken this trial before? No. You are the first. And the record for errors? What is the most mistakes anyone has made while still attempting the trial? LeHFY hesitated. An old council member spoke up. The worst performance by any Aldrani candidate was 3 errors. Most simply give up if they cannot achieve perfection. Daniel nodded. So, I am the first human to ever take this trial. I made 17 errors in 10,000 words. The worst Aldrani made 3 errors, but they had perfect memory to help them. I have no such gift. He looked around the room at all the faces watching him. I am not asking you to pass me. I am asking you to see what this means. A human with human memory came within 17 words of matching what your people can do naturally. Think about what that says. The hall was silent again. But this time, it was a different kind of silence. People were thinking. Valera saw her father, the Emperor, lean forward in his seat. His skin flickered with colors she did not recognize. He was interested, maybe even impressed. The rules are clear, LeHFY said coldly. Perfection is required. The candidate has failed. The rules may be clear, the Emperor said, speaking for the first time, but rules can be questioned. This trial was designed when all candidates were Aldrani. Perhaps it is time to consider whether the old rules still serve us well. Father, Valera said, standing up. Her heart was beating fast. May I speak? The Emperor nodded. The purpose of these trials is to prove worthiness, she said. To show that a candidate deserves to marry into our family. Commander Cole came to our world knowing these trials were impossible for him. He came anyway. He prepared as best he could. And he performed better than any human could be expected to perform. Is that not proof of worthiness? Not perfection, but dedication. Not natural ability, but hard work and determination. Her words hung in the air. The council members looked at each other. Some nodded slightly. Others frowned. LeHFY's face was like stone. The princess speaks from emotion, not reason. We cannot change our standards simply because we feel sorry for someone. I do not feel sorry for him, Valera replied, her voice strong. I admire him. There is a difference. The Emperor raised his hand for silence. The trial of memory is complete. The candidate did not achieve perfection. However, his performance will be noted in the records. We will proceed to the next trial. It was not a victory, but it was not a complete defeat either. As the crowd began to leave, Daniel walked over to Valera. He looked exhausted. The effort of memorization had drained him. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for speaking up." "You did the hard part," she replied. "I just said what everyone was thinking." "Not everyone. Nethril would be happy to see me sent home in shame. Nethril is afraid of change. Many of my people are." Daniel nodded. "There are people like that everywhere. On Earth, when we first met other species, some humans wanted to hide from them, to close our borders and pretend we were still alone. They were afraid too. What happened to them? They lost. History does not wait for people who are afraid to move forward." Valera smiled. "You sound very certain. I am certain about one thing." He looked into her eyes. "I am going to pass these trials. All of them. Not because I want to prove anything to your council, but because I made a promise to try. And I do not break my promises." 2 more trials waited. The trial of combat and the trial of wisdom. Both were designed to favor Aldrani's strengths. Both were supposed to be impossible for humans, but Valera had learned something today. She had learned that Daniel Cole did not believe in impossible, and she was starting to believe it too. The trial of combat was scheduled for the next week. Valera spent her nights unable to sleep, thinking about what would happen. The trial required candidates to fight 3 opponents in sequence. The weapons were Aldrani blades, curved swords that hummed with energy. They were designed for Aldrani hands, Aldrani reach, Aldrani speed. Daniel was shorter than most Aldrani. His arms were shorter. His reflexes were slower. He would be fighting with weapons that did not fit him against warriors who had trained for centuries. He would be killed. Valera found him in the training grounds late one night. He was practicing with an Aldrani blade, trying to learn the movements. His form was wrong. His grip was clumsy. Every swing looked like it might send the weapon flying out of his hands. She watched from the shadows for a while. Then she stepped out into the light. "You should withdraw," she said. Daniel stopped. He was covered in sweat. His hands were wrapped in bandages where the blade had cut him during practice. But his eyes were calm. "Is that what you want?" he asked. "I want you to live." "That is not an answer." Valera walked closer. Her skin flickered with blue, showing her fear. She did not try to hide it. "I do not want you to withdraw," she admitted. "But I do not want you to die either. There must be another way." Daniel set down the blade. He walked to her until they were only a few feet apart. His brown eyes looked into her silver ones. "Do you trust me?" he asked. "What? Do you trust me?" "Not as a human. Not as a political symbol. As a person. Do you trust Daniel Cole?" Valera thought about the question. She thought about the past weeks. The conversations in the garden. The way he listened when she talked. The way he made her laugh. The way he had faced the memory trial with 17 errors and still held his head high. "Yes," she said. "I trust you." Daniel smiled. "Then trust me now. I'm going to pass this trial. I just need to find the right way." "What way?" "You cannot beat 3 Aldrani warriors in combat. It is not possible. Direct combat, no. But there are always other paths. Humans are very good at finding them." He would not tell her more than that. She left the training grounds worried, but strangely hopeful. Daniel had a plan. She did not know what it was, but she believed in him. The day of the trial of combat came. The arena was packed with spectators. More people had come to this trial than any other in 100 years. They wanted to see the human fight. They wanted to see him fail, or maybe, Valera thought, some of them wanted to see him succeed. Daniel walked into the arena wearing light armor. He carried an Aldrani blade in his right hand. Across from him stood his first opponent, a young noble named Lord Varan. Varan was tall and proud. He had never lost a practiced duel in his life. "Begin," said the judge. Varan charged. His blade moved so fast it was just a blur of light. He swung at Daniel's head, then his body, then his legs. 3 strikes in less than a second. Daniel was not there for any of them. He had dropped his weapon. The crowd gasped. Varan stumbled, confused. He had expected to hit something, and instead his blade had cut only air. Daniel moved. He was not as fast as an Aldrani, but he was faster than Varan expected. He ducked under the noble's arm, grabbed his wrist, and twisted. Using Varan's own momentum, he threw him to the ground. Before anyone could react, Daniel had picked up Varan's fallen blade and held it to his throat. "Yield," Daniel said calmly. Varan's face burned red with shame, but he had no choice. "I yield." The crowd was silent. Then whispers began. What had they just seen? The human had not won through strength or speed. He had won through cleverness. He had turned his opponent's attack against him. The second opponent was more careful. Her name was Lady Siren, and she was a decorated soldier. She did not charge. She circled Daniel slowly, watching his every move. Daniel circled with her. He looked relaxed, almost bored. But Valera could see the tension in his shoulders. He was waiting for something. Siren struck. A quick jab at Daniel's chest. He stepped aside. She struck again. A slash at his arm. He moved back. For 20 minutes, they danced. Siren attacked again and again. Daniel did not try to block or counter. He simply moved, always staying just out of reach. And slowly, Siren began to tire. The Aldrani were strong, but they relied on quick fights. Their combat style was about overwhelming opponents in the first few seconds. It was not designed for long battles. Daniel's style was about survival, about lasting, about making the other person make mistakes. After 30 minutes, Siren was breathing hard. Her strikes were slower. Her footwork was sloppy. And Daniel was still fresh, still moving, still waiting. Finally, she overextended. Just a little. Just enough. Daniel stepped inside her guard, grabbed her blade, and twisted it out of her hands. He caught it before it hit the ground. "Yield," he said again. Siren stared at him. Her face showed shock, then anger, then something else. Respect. "I yield," she said. 2 victories. One more opponent remained. The third fighter was a legend. His name was Lord Torath. He was 7 feet tall with arms like tree trunks and skin like polished bronze. He had won the trial of combat 15 times. He had never lost. Not once in 200 years. He walked into the arena and looked at Daniel the way a cat looks at a mouse. "Little human," he said, his voice deep and rumbling. "You have done well. Better than anyone expected. But your luck ends here." Daniel looked up at the giant warrior. He seemed so small in comparison. So fragile. So human. Then he did something no one expected. He walked to the center of the arena, sat down cross-legged on the ground, and closed his eyes. "What is this?" Nethril demanded from her seat. "Stand and fight." "I invoke the right of words," Daniel said. His voice was calm and clear. The arena went completely silent. Valera felt her heart stop. The right of words. She had read about it once in an ancient history book. It was a tradition from before the Aldrani became warriors. In those days, disputes were settled through debate, not combat. If someone invoked the right of words, both parties had to argue their case before judges. The winner was decided by the strength of their argument, not their sword. The tradition was thousands of years old. No one had used it in over a millennium, but it had never been officially removed from the laws. "You cannot do this," Nethril said, her voice shaking with anger. This is a combat trial. The right of words is older than the combat tradition, Daniel replied, still sitting with his eyes closed. I have read your histories. I have read your laws. The right stands, unless you wish to say that your ancient traditions mean nothing. Nathral's face went pale. If she denied the right of words, she would be insulting thousands of years of Eldrani culture. But if she allowed it, the human might win. The Emperor stood. The right of words is recognized. Both parties will argue their case. I will serve as judge. Lord Torath looked confused. He was a warrior, not a speaker. Fighting was all he knew. But he could not refuse the Emperor. The debate lasted for hours. Daniel argued that the true purpose of the trials was to prove worthiness. He spoke about dedication, sacrifice, and the courage to face impossible odds. He quoted Eldrani philosophers and poets. He referenced their religious texts, their histories, their deepest beliefs about honor and strength. Lord Torath tried to argue back, but his words were clumsy. He knew only one kind of strength, the strength of muscles and blades. He did not know how to fight with ideas. In the end, the Emperor made his decision. Commander Cole has demonstrated wisdom, knowledge, and the courage to face challenges in unexpected ways, he said. These are the qualities we seek in those who would join our family. The trial of combat is past. The crowd erupted. Some cheered. Some shouted in anger. But most just stared in amazement that the human had done it again. He had faced an impossible test and found a way through. As Daniel stood and dusted off his uniform, Valira ran to him. She did not care about tradition or dignity. She threw her arms around him and held him tight. You did it, she whispered. I cannot believe you did it. Daniel hugged her back. His voice was tired but happy. One more trial to go. The trial of wisdom. After today, I think you might actually pass it. He pulled back and looked at her. His eyes were warm. I told you. I do not break my promises. Valera realized she was smiling. Really smiling, for the first time in months. And her skin was glowing gold. She did not try to hide it anymore. The trial of wisdom was the last test. It was also the oldest. Candidates had to answer questions from the Elder Council. Questions about philosophy, morality, and the meaning of honor. There were no right answers. The judges simply decided if the candidate's wisdom was worthy. Daniel spent the days before the trial in quiet thought. He did not study or read. He just sat in the garden where he and Valera had first talked, watching the glowing flowers and thinking. Valera sat with him sometimes. They did not always speak. Sometimes they just enjoyed each other's company in silence. She had learned that humans valued silence too. Not awkward silence, but comfortable silence. The kind shared by people who did not need words to understand each other. Are you worried? She asked him one evening. A little, he admitted. The other trials had rules. Even if the rules were unfair, I could find ways around them. But this trial is different. I cannot prepare for it. I can only be myself and hope that is enough. What if it is not enough? Daniel thought about the question. Then I will have tried my best. And that is all anyone can do. Valera moved closer to him. Her hand found his hand in the darkness. You have already proven yourself to me, she said. No matter what happens tomorrow, I want you to know that. Daniel squeezed her hand. Thank you, Valera. That means everything. They sat together until the stars came out. Then they walked back to the palace, hand in hand, not caring who saw them. The trial of wisdom took place in the Hall of Ancestors. It was the oldest room in the palace, built when the Eldrani first learned to travel between stars. The walls were covered with the faces of past emperors and empresses, watching from paintings and carvings thousands of years old. The Elder Council sat in a semicircle. There were 7 of them, including Advisor Nithral. Each one was over 1,000 years old. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched species come and go. Very little could surprise them. Daniel stood in the center of the room. He wore his human uniform, clean and pressed as always. His face was calm. "The trial of wisdom will now begin," LeHFY announced. Her voice was cold. She had not forgiven Daniel for making her look foolish in the previous trials. "You will answer our questions truthfully and completely. We will judge whether your wisdom is worthy of our imperial family." The first elder spoke. "What is the purpose of power?" Daniel thought for a moment. Power has no purpose on its own. It is a tool. Like a blade, it can be used to protect or to harm. The purpose comes from the person who holds it. The elder nodded and made a note. The second elder asked, "What is more important, truth or kindness?" "Both," Daniel said. "Truth without kindness is cruelty. Kindness without truth is lies. We must find ways to be both honest and gentle." More notes were made. The questions continued. They asked about loyalty and betrayal, about duty and love, about the nature of wisdom itself. Daniel answered each question carefully, honestly, thoughtfully. He did not try to give the answers he thought they wanted. He gave his own answers from his own heart. Finally, LeHFY leaned forward. Her black eyes were hard. "One final question, Commander Cole. Why should we allow a human to marry our princess? Your species is young. Your lives are short. You have accomplished nothing compared to the Aldrani. What makes you worthy?" The room went quiet. Everyone knew this was the real test. Everything else had been preparation for this moment. Daniel looked at LeHFY. Then he looked around the room, at all the ancient faces watching him. Finally, his eyes found LeHFY, sitting in the crowd with her hands clasped tight. "You are right," he said. "Humans are young. We have only known about the galaxy for 200 years. We have made many mistakes. We are still learning, but that is exactly why I am worthy. Your people have 50,000 years of history. You have seen everything, done everything, conquered everything worth conquering. And because of that, you have forgotten something important. You have forgotten how to grow. Humans are still growing. Every day, we learn something new. Every year, we become something more than we were before. We make mistakes, yes, but we also learn from them. We adapt. We change. We refuse to accept that anything is impossible. You look at our short lives as a weakness, but I see it as a strength. We do not have centuries to wait for things to happen. We have to make them happen now. That urgency drives us forward. It makes us brave and foolish and creative and stubborn. It makes us human. I cannot give your princess 50,000 years of history, but I can give her something else. I can give her a partner who will never stop trying to be better, who will face every challenge, no matter how impossible, and find a way through, who will love her not because tradition demands it, but because she is worth loving." He paused. Then he spoke directly to LeHFY. "I did not come here expecting to find someone like you. I came because I thought I could help prevent a war. But somewhere along the way, I found something I was not looking for. I found a person who is kind and wise and brave, who looked at me, a stranger from a strange world, and chose to see me as a person instead of a problem. If your council decides I am not worthy, I will accept their judgment. But I want you to know, LeHFY, that these weeks have been the best of my life. No matter what happens next, I am grateful for every moment we have shared." The room was silent. LeHFY felt tears running down her face. Her skin was glowing bright gold, showing emotions she could not hide. Love, pride, hope.net, Ashar, all looked uncomfortable. She had expected the human to fail. She had not expected him to speak like that. The Emperor stood. His skin was flickering with colors, Valera had never seen him show before. "I have heard enough," he said. "Commander Daniel Cole has demonstrated wisdom beyond his years. He has shown courage in the face of impossible odds. And he has shown that the heart of a person matters more than the age of their species." He looked at Valera. "Daughter, do you accept this man as your husband? Not because we command it, but because you choose it." Valera stood. Her voice was strong and clear. "I choose him. I choose Daniel Cole of Earth. I choose him now and for all the days to come." The Emperor smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible. But it was real. "Then let it be done. The trials are complete. The marriage will proceed." The wedding took place on the autumn equinox, as planned. But it was not the quiet political event that everyone had expected. It was a celebration. People came from across the empire to see the human who had turned impossible into possible. Ships filled the space around the palace planet. Messages of congratulation arrived from 100 worlds. Daniel wore a uniform that combined human and Aldrani traditions. Dark blue fabric with silver trim. Medals from both species. A sword at his side that Valera had given him as a wedding gift. Valera wore a gown of starlight. Literally starlight, woven into fabric by the finest craftsmen in the empire. She looked like a goddess come down from the heavens. They stood together before the emperor and the assembled guests. When the ceremony asked if they came willingly, they both said yes. When it asked if they would stand together against all challenges, they both said yes. And when it asked if they would love each other for all their days, they looked into each other's eyes and said yes. The kiss was gentle, soft, a promise of things to come. As they walked out of the ceremony hall, hand in hand, the crowd cheered. Humans and Aldrani together, celebrating something that had never happened before. Valera leaned close to Daniel. "You turned this into something nobody expected." Daniel smiled. "We turned it into something, together. What do we do now? Now, we build something new. A bridge between our peoples. A partnership that shows the galaxy what is possible when different species work together instead of fighting each other." Valera squeezed his hand. "That sounds like a lot of work." "It will be. But I think we can handle it." She laughed. "Humans, always so confident." "Always," he agreed. "It is one of our better qualities." They walked into the sunlight, into the cheering crowds, into their new life together. Behind them, 1,000 years of tradition. Ahead of them, a future no one had imagined. The story of Daniel Cole and Princess Valera spread across the galaxy. It became a legend. The tale of a human who faced impossible trials and refused to give up. Who won a princess's heart not through strength or wealth, but through wisdom and determination and love. Children on 100 worlds heard the story and dreamed of doing impossible things. Humans and Aldrani, who had never met, began to talk, to trade, to learn from each other. The war that everyone had feared never came. All because one small human from a young, foolish species looked at the impossible and said, "I will find a way." That was the thing about humans, Valera would tell people later. They did not accept limits. They did not believe in impossible. They looked at walls and saw doors. They looked at enemies and saw friends waiting to be made. It was frustrating. It was annoying. It was wonderful, and she would not have it any other way.